Scouts Victoria respectfully acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Victoria where our activities take place today. We pay our respects to elders both past, present and emerging, and continue to recognise and embrace the important continuous history and connection to land and community of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people.
Hi, I'm Lawrence and I'm the State Commissioner of Environment, and I'm really excited to bring you Scouts Victoria's first ever statewide digital Bioblitz, the Big Scouting Bioblitz. Big Scouting Bioblitz is your opportunity to shake off the cobwebs from lockdown and get out into nature. From the 26th to the 29th of November, Scouts from all across Victoria can get involved just by using their smartphone or digital camera to record local wildlife, plants and fungi in their nearby parks. To add a bit of competition, there'll be a leaderboard as well, and one Scout group will be crowned the winners with the most records collected over the weekend. Plus, everyone that participated from that Scout group will get a prize. We've partnered with Parks Victoria for this activity to help our local researchers understand more about what's going on with our plants, fungi and animals in our local parks. The records you capture during the Bioblitz will directly help our scientists, and the more we capture, the better quality the research will be. So together, let's explore nature, record species and support action.
Welcome to Scout Quest. I'm Caitlin from Belmont Ventures. As you have heard from Lawrence just then, we are putting on Scouts Victoria's first ever statewide Bioblitz. The Big Scouting Bioblitz will be running from November 26 to 29 and will see Scouts of all ages heading out to their local parks to collect biodiversity records. To help us learn more about the Bioblitzes and citizen science, we've invited along a very special guest from Parks Victoria. Tim Schwinghammer is one of Parks Victoria's Biodiversity Officers. Tim first became interested in the environment when he joined Craigieburn Scout Group at 8 years old, and he then followed that passion all the way into Rover Scouts. He went to university to study science, ecology and sustainability, and after finishing his course, he began working for Parks Victoria. His first job was a project firefighter in Kinglake before becoming a ranger working in the Alpine National Park, and then a grassland ranger in Echuca. Tim currently works as a biodiversity officer, and it is his role to help rangers and citizen scientists all over the state study flora and fauna so that Parks Victoria can make some informative decisions and help protect all our reserves and parks. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Hi, Caitlin. Hi, everybody else. Thank you for the invitation and that welcome. It's good to be here.
Great, let's get started.
All right, so as Caitlin said, I'm here to talk to you all about the Big Scout Bioblitz and citizen science. But first of all, I too would like to pay my acknowledgements to the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today and recognise that we may be meeting on more than one land, as I'm sure not everybody is on Djadjurrung country like myself. I would like to pay my respects to their elders past, present, and elders of any other communities who may be here today. All right, so first to kick us off, I'll just describe biodiversity. I'm sure most of you know already, but just in case you don't, whenever I'm talking about biodiversity, I'm talking about the variety of plants and animals in any size landscape. So it can be as big as all of Victoria, right down to an individual park, or even a puddle or 1 square meter of bush. And that's the biodiversity is just how many different types of plants and animals. As a general rule of thumb, more is better. And in case you were wondering what this beautiful creature is on this first slide, that is a common scalyfoot. It's not a snake. It's a type of legless lizard. I found that guy in the little desert. All right, let's get started. Okay, first off, I better tell you about Parks Victoria, who we are and what we do. So you think Parks Victoria, you think national parks, and absolutely, we certainly do manage all of Victoria's national parks, but we manage over 3,000 parks and reserves. and have a think about how many of those you think might be national parks, and I'll tell you in a minute. And so with that, that includes 70% of Victoria's coastline, which most people don't know, but also marine parks as well. And all up, in terms of the parks, it's it roughly was. Sorry, I did say. Oh, anyway, 4 million hectares, right at the very top. How did I not see that? And I did a little bit of maths, and 4 million hectares of public land is just under 2,258,000 MCG ovals. So that's a lot of ground. And despite there are a lot of ranges, there's not enough to cover all of that land. So what we're really interested in talking about today is how we can get everybody involved, including scouts, in learning more about the land, which will help us make more informed decisions. And for national parks, out of that 3,000, 45. So that doesn't seem like a lot compared to 3,000, but yeah, they tend to be the big ones and the really special ones. All right, and I thought I'd better tell you what a biodiversity officer is. And Caitlin summed it up pretty well. It's my role to help both Park Victoria staff and the public study out in the parks and get out there and see what we can find, both plants and animals, and including citizen science. So I work for a lot of volunteers like the Field Naturalist Club of Victoria, lots of different friends groups, and our scouts. Here's the photos you're looking at now. There's a little bit of examples. So I work with a friends group up in the Grasslands, and sometimes we're looking at a large scale landscape. So we would just look at grasslands, or sometimes we target an individual specific species. So that photograph on the left, that little blurry blob in my hand that you can't quite see, is a plains wanderer. And that's a critically endangered bird that's Victoria is its last stronghold really left in the world. They are in New South Wales and Queensland as well. So really important. So we get directly involved in that. But I kept the photo in on the right-hand side. And again, that's not a snake. That's another legless lizard. That one there is a striped legless lizard. And we can find striped legless lizards even in Melbourne and grasslands around there. This little guy was particularly significant. I found him in Terek National Park, and I just noticed that he was a little bit different. So I picked him up, which I don't normally do, and we don't handle animals unless we have to. And I must also clarify that don't pick up any animals. They're trained professionals, and in the right circumstances and permits, okay. But yeah, in this whole BioBlitz, we shouldn't be handling anything. But this guy, why I kept him in is because something was a little bit different. And it's a good story of the importance of why we should stop. And even if we see things that you sometimes think are fairly common, it's worth taking those photos and really analysing. Because striped legless lizards hadn't been seen in that national park for 20 years. And now all of a sudden we've got one record. So what that tells us is that we need to focus some of our research on that park in a different style and a little bit more. So with this BioBlitz program, we're hoping that you will all find just some interesting records that we just don't expect, like the striped legless lizard. All right, so citizen science, as I explained, is generally bringing in citizens, volunteers like yourself who aren't hired as professional science, but that doesn't mean that you don't have knowledge, enthusiasm, and skills that we all can use. It's about going out and giving a go and helping us collect data, and iNaturalist is a wonderful way to do so. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. This photo that you're looking at now is one of our ongoing collaborative programs with members of the Field Nats of Victoria. where we go out to specific reserves and we target reptiles, birds, and mammals. And there you can see there they've got a small little skink in hand, and we're going through the books to try and identify exactly which one it is. All right, this is a less exciting slide, but this will help explain why we're really interested in getting the Scouts involved and why data is important. So every time we get a record recorded, either it's by iNaturalist or another app, or put in directly into a database, we use those databases to make land management decisions. So, for example, if we look at the two maps that are here in front of us, on the left-hand side, there's the St. Arnaud Regional Park, and on the right-hand side is the Kiora State Park. And at St. Arnaud, there's 5 records recorded in that park, and they're all bird records. One of them's a swift parrot, which is a really good find. I'll talk a little bit more about why later in the talk. But there's a whole lot of unknown about that whole top section of the park and even that bottom. But then if we looked at Kiora, lots of records in there. Each of those purple dots is a record. And it's covering birds, mammals, reptiles, invertebrates, flowers. So we know a lot more about Kiora. So if we need to make a decision about if a fire's gone through, what do we need to look after? What's there? What kind of habitat does it require? Should we be focusing predator control on Kiora or St. Arnaud? We can clearly make a better decision with Kiora. So where you can all really come in to help us out is looking at some of the parks that we call data deficient, that we don't have the records. And you can see that St. Arnaud Regional Park is hidden up here in the middle. But these are some of the parks that you might be able to get involved in for the Bioblitz. So just and with data, when you collect it, what will then happen is it will go directly into 2 databases: the Atlas of Living Australia and the Victorian Biodiversity Atlas. And the strength of the data can influence on where it goes, but all data is important. And what I mean by strength of data is whether it can be verified or not. And a great way to make your data nice and strong and verifiable is with a photo. So if we can get photos of all the plants and animals and invertebrates that you guys find and fungi, that makes life better. It makes our IDs a lot more confirmed, and we can put that into databases that we use for specific decisions. That doesn't mean that if you can't get a photo, that we shouldn't be recording that information, because all data is good data. And even if you see something and you go to take a photo and it runs away or it flies off, but you know what it was, you can still use the app and record what you saw and just without it. So we can't verify that data, but that will still go into the Atlas of Living Australia. And we can look at that and be like, oh, Craigieburn Scout Group, they're pretty sure they saw some common dunarts. Maybe we should go out there and have a bit of a look. So everything you guys see will be good. All right, now let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's talk about actually getting out in the parks and what you might see and how we can help find some of these things. All right, so I'm going to talk about Victoria's 9 ecosystems and a little bit of the differences between them and some fun stories about the animals and what you might see, because we all want to see nice, fun photos, don't we? So first cab off the rank is the Alps. And as you would imagine, the Alps are our mountainous ranges over on the east of the state, in the bottom end of the Great Dividing Range. So some of the animals that I picked for this one was the mountain katydid and it's similar to a grasshopper, but as you can see, he's a little bit plumper. His antennae are a little bit different, but he's got that beautiful, colourful bands. So really, really cool, and you can only find them up in the high places. Wedge-tailed eagle, I'm sure most of you have seen, if not everyone, and just a beautiful bird. We can't miss it. But the special bird I put in is the flame robin. And I put him in because while I'm talking about ecosystems, they're you're not going to have the animals just in that ecosystem alone. You're going to find multiple animals that are in every ecosystem or most of them. And the flame robin's an interesting one because not only is it found up in the Alps and the Low Country, because it's a seasonal vagrant. So it goes up into the high country, and that's where it likes to breed. And you can see the male there. He's got his big, red, beautiful chest. He's out there looking for a girlfriend. But then, when not in the breeding season, they like to come down to the low forests and like to feed and forage around there. And he's nice red chest. It fades up a little bit, and he's a little bit harder to tell that he's a flame robin. But what's also interesting is that they're sexually dimorphic. And what I mean by that is that the boys and the girls look different. So the girls are a much more brown, drab color. So you can have one bird that's up in the Alps, down in the valley. He looks different when he's in both locations, and the boys and girls look different. So they can be a little bit tricky. All right. Grasslands. Now, if you look at that picture on the left, a lot of people don't see much. Some people think it's a farmland, it's dead grass. Not at all. Grasslands are amazing. They're not just a paddock. If you got grasslands all around Melbourne, especially to the western suburbs and to bits of the north, and then there's Northern Plains grasslands up around between Echuca and Swan Hill. And why I really love grasslands is if you get out there and you go for a nice slow walk through and have a look around, you never know what's going to turn up. Lots of small things. And I also take this opportunity to talk about some of the different survey techniques you can use. So you can go out during the day for a walk, but grasslands, a lot of the stuff will often be hiding and sheltering and trying to find a little bit of shade. So when we survey the grasslands, we often go out at night with a spotlight, and you can see that on the top right photo. That one is a snake, so I've got to put one in there, and that's a curl snake, that one. But I've included the photo of the moola beside it, and that's not an animal. That's that weird-looking flowery plant with the nice little pink bits, because we're interested in plants as well. I love animals, but I got to remember to take photos of all the different plants I find. So if you see any interesting plants, or even just all plants, iNaturalist can take that data as well. And sometimes the animals, you'll find that they're not in the environment. They're playing on man-made things, like the eastern bearded dragon over there on the fence. I was shutting a gate and I did not know he was there, and he growled at me, and it scared me. I jumped. And you can see there he's twisted his body a little bit, trying to make himself a little bit bigger from where I was standing, and he tried to scare me, and he did scare me. So yeah, be careful of that. But I've got that little guy down the bottom left. Again, looks like a snake, but as you can read there, he is an olive legless lizard. And now that I've mentioned legless lizards a couple of times already, and I've shown you 3 in the first couple of slides, there you can see some of the differences there. If you look at his eye, it's nice and round, and a big round pupil. Or a snake's, you'll have a much more of a slit pupil. And he's got a little bit of a hole, if you can see, just down in here. That's his ear. So legless lizards can hear us, and snakes can't. And they can also vocalize. You can get little legless lizards that'll squeak at you, soft like a mouse. All right, heathlands. So heathlands, you can find them in sort of coastal environments, but also up in the Alps. And when I'm talking about a heathland, it's condensed, low shrub environments can be pretty hard to walk through. And that makes surveying a little bit more challenging. So you can try a different tactic. If you can't get in there to actually find everything that's hiding in there, you can hang back a little bit, get your binoculars, and look for birds that way. But also listen. You can see up the top photo there is a ground parrot. And ground parrots are very different to most parrots that you guys see all around, like rainbow lorikeets and cockatoos and rosellas. As the name suggests, ground parrots, they like to hide in the shrubs, and you won't see them up flying around and hiding on trees, but you can hear them calling. So if you're sitting there nice and quiet and you hear different sounds throughout the landscape, record it on your smartphone, on your tablet. I think there's a record option on iNaturalist. If not, just a video call and we can upload later. But some of the other sort of animals that you can see in heathlands, things like an antechinus that I've got there on the right hand side. And I know a lot of you are thinking that that looks like a mouse or a rat or something we don't really interested in, but no, he's a native Australian and he's carnivorous. He has teeth like a dog. Nice, sharp, pointy. He loves to run around eating little invertebrates and any little skinks that he can get a hold of. And I've also included a shingleback in this slide, and he's down the bottom there. And I thought I'll put a shingleback in because shinglebacks, some people call them that, some people call them stumpy tails or just stumpies. Some people even call them the two-headed lizard because their tail looks like their head, and that's a distraction from predators. Why that's important is because all of those common names are right, and that can make it confusing when we want to know, well, which animal are we talking about? Because what if the same animal, what if different animals have the same common name? So, as most people know, all of animals have Latin names as well. So, for example, if I'm saying no, it's a shingleback, and you're saying no, it's a stumpy tail, its real name is Tiliqua rogusa. And if we can work out that, then we know it's exactly that species. Why that can come in handy is if you're not sure exactly what it is, search the common name online, chuck it into Google, put in shingleback if that's not coming up on the suggested names for iNaturalist, and then that will tell you its Latin name, and you can put in its scientific name into iNaturalist, and that will tell you what common name they're using. So that can just help if you're like, no, I know what it's called, but it's not coming up. Little tip. All right, the Mallee. So the Mallee, that's a lot of the west of the state. More of your hotter, deserty environments. So includes national parks like the Murray Sunset and the Big and Little Deserts. And the Mallee is similar to heathland in its structure. It tends to be a lot shorter and a lot denser. And the trees are a lot shorter than what we're used to seeing in forests around Melbourne and out in the east. And it's a hot, dry place. So, as you would expect, it's really good for reptiles. There's some really, really cool reptiles out there. Um, I've included a couple on here. Both are dragons. Victoria, full of dragons. We have here a knobby dragon. As digging in the sand, that's a nice female, and she's digging a nest. So she'll lay her eggs in there and then cover it up. And that was right on the roadside. So roadsides can be really good for surveying for reptiles and birds. You can walk. You can decide as a group. You're going to do 500-meter, 200-meter, 1 kilometer transects, and you walk from one point to the other very slowly, looking at both sides of the roads and just recording all the different animals you see as you go. And of course, any interesting plants. What else you can do while doing that, especially in places like the Mallee when there's soft sand, is don't forget to look on the ground and see if you can find footprints, because footprints can tell you what species are present as well. Things like the emu, big three-toed dinosaur-looking footprints. So you can take a photo of a print, and that can help tell us what animals are in the landscape as well. And poo. Poo is great. You can identify lots of animals from their poo. So take photos of scats. Um, Other fun animals that I've picked here in the Mallee is a painted dragon, and just look at those colors, all the greens and the reds. Just a beautiful, beautiful lizard, and as well as Mallee fowl. And if you see a Mallee fowl, I will be so very jealous. I have never seen one. But that's another great example of what you can find when you're out walking, but without seeing the animal, is their nests. They make these huge mounds. So if you were in the Mallee surveying and you found a really big sand mound smooth on the top, it can be nothing but a Malleefowl nest, and that's really important to take a photo of, record as well. Okay, dry forests. Um, Dry forests, as the name might suggest, kind of dry. They're big, tall eucalypt forests of lower levels of rainfall, and they tend to have much more open canopies. So they're a lot easier to walk through. You can see here, so some tall grasses. Zen for so they're grass trees. They're nice low ones, and that can be a really fun sort of landscape to walk around in. And one of my favorite things to look for when I'm in dry forests is arboreal mammals. And so when I say arboreal, it means tree loving. So things that live in trees, like possums and gliders and the koala photoed here. So they're a really good landscape that if your park looks kind of like that, to walk along the roads and maybe in the bush a little bit, looking up. And again, it's a good one at night time with a torch, and sometimes you see eyes shining back at you, and you can take some nice photos to see what it is. Is it a possum? Is it a glider? So that's there. That's a really fun landscape to explore. I've also included in here a flying duck orchid, just because they're cool. It's a flower, but it looks like a duck. It's amazing. Why it looks like that is because it's evolved specifically for a wasp to come and pollinate it. That it's attracted to the scent of the duck, and it flies in just in below the duck bill here. And as soon as it does to grab this nectar, the duck's head, bong, ducks down and bumps him on the butt and drops on some pollen. And that's how those orchids are pollinated. And so if you see weird, wonderful flowers like that, definitely iNaturalist photo, send it in. And I've put in eastern grey kangaroos, and most people, kangaroos, seen them hundreds of times. Who cares? We care. Um, we know lots about kangaroos. We know where they're found, but it's still really important information. So if you keep recording every time you see kangaroos out there, and then all of a sudden we stop getting records, that can tell us that maybe something's changed. Have the kangaroos moved on? What's going on in that landscape? So even common species are really important to know about it. So we are interested in everything. All right, and wet forests. You might be able to have guessed this one already, but wet forests have more rainfall than dry forests. And because of that, they tend to have a thicker sort of mid-story canopy and underlay. And what I mean by that is vegetation about the height of a person. So they're a little bit harder to walk through at times because you've got to push through a lot of scrub. And so that's why we recommend sticking to formed trails and tracks, because it's a little easier to get lost in those ones. And so I've added in a couple of photos here. I've got a swamp wallaby over there on the right-hand side. And if you look really closely, you can see a little joey head sticking out. And so that photo, it's hidden. the wallaby behind some of the sticks and the leaves a little bit, but that photo is okay. We can still tell what species it is, and that's good. They don't all have to be super fantastic photos like that shot of the Gippsland water dragon running across the top of the water. Isn't that amazing? And you can't go past a lyrebird. Yeah, their calls are just amazing. I definitely recommend everybody YouTube's superb lyrebird calls, and you can hear uh, their song. Why it's so amazing is because they're a mimic. They copy all other birds around them that they hear, and they add it to their song, kind of like adding a song onto a Spotify playlist. And the more songs that they have, the more impressive they seem to be to the ladies. But what's changed in sort of recent history with lyrebirds is that they're starting to have what we call anthropogenic impacts. And what that means is anthropogenic means human influenced. So when I say that, lyrebirds' songs are changing because of humans. So now not only do we hear them mimicking other birds, but we hear them making sounds imitating chainsaws. Because people are taking lots of photos of them, you can hear photo shutters clicking on really quickly, and even babies crying. That's a weird one. All right, inland waters, so lakes, rivers, and streams. Uh, these can be little miniature biodiversity hotspots because everything needs water. So these can be a great place to survey. And as I'm sure most people would guess, frogs. Great place for frogs. And frogs are a lovely combination of a couple of different techniques to survey for them. You can go out looking during the day. They're certainly about. They're a little bit harder to find as they're a little bit more cryptic. They tend to run and hide, but also really good to try and find at night. And that's where you can see the photos of the growling grass frog there and the pobbleblanc were taken. They bright photos, but at night they tend to come up onto the shore and do their croaks. And so, yeah, that's a nice. But whenever we're around waterways, we've got to play it safe. And it's not just about the water though. So I thought I'd include that photo on the right there. And that's a nice double whammy there as well, chucking in some beautiful rainbow lorikeets, which I'm sure we all know, but a possum butt. And despite the fact that we can't see all of that possum, we can tell just by the tail that that is a ringtail possum. Because if it was a brush-tail possum that you see all around Melbourne and a lot of the landscape, it's no hair and it's not big and bushy. So sometimes even just one part of the animal is enough for us to tell exactly what it is. All right, the coast. Now the coast is a really good place to survey. Why that is because you get a couple of systems. Like you can cheat. There's the nice little coastal area up along the top here where you get a mixture of heathlands. So you get all the species that come along in there. You get everything that utilizes the beach. Stuff like the hooded plover down on the bottom one there, and lots of seagulls and lots of other shorebirds. So they're kind of used to people, so you can get some good photos of some shorebirds. But especially with birds like the hooded plover, a lot of them nest on the sand. And if we do find areas where birds are nesting, we leave them alone. We stay away and we don't take photos of the nest and get up in close because we want to leave that as nice, safe places for the animals. But what the coast also have is one of my favorite areas to explore, the intertidal zone. So the intertidal zone is that lovely area that gets inundated by the tide when it's high and is exposed when it's low, and that's where the rock pools are. And if you are anything like me, you love to rock pool ramble. And that's looking in there and trying to find crabs and sea snails. I found an octopus once. That was amazing. And of course, the sea stars. And iNaturalist is really, it's the perfect app for this landscape because they're at a nice little small confined location. They're generally not moving. You can get some really good photos. But of course, be careful. Don't handle them because some can be venomous, especially things like the blue-ringed octopus, but also some shells. So we leave them alone as well. Um, all right, and the last ecosystem is marine. This one will be a bit hard for the BioBlitz, but I can't leave it out. And if you happen to be in the coastal environment and you do see things like dolphins and whales and seals out in the water, you can try and get a photo, and we can add them in too. You might not be able to get the Port Jackson shark. That might break your phone. It depends on how waterproof that is. But I couldn't leave the marine environment out. But the one thing that you will always find in every ecosystem, and I can guarantee you'll find some on every survey if you look, is invertebrates. I love invertebrates. And I just look at these photos and you can see why. They're just miniature, amazing, fantastic creatures, and there's just such a variety. And you can pick almost any tree or shrub, and if you look closely enough, really look under the leaves and along the branches, you will find something interesting. Um, you cannot go wrong. But on that, let's have a quick chat about how we interact with landscapes when we're out there. So, despite the fact that we know that there's going to be things like invertebrates everywhere, we don't want to disturb their environments. And what I mean by that is we don't want to be turning over rocks and logs for a couple of reasons. One is because there might be things that we don't want to disturb under there, like venomous snakes. And we don't want that to have that all of a sudden that nice close contact. So please just leave everything where it is. And in the same, we don't want to be pulling bark and stuff off trees because although there's bugs and spiders underneath them, if we pull all the bark off, then they've got nowhere else to live. So it's very important that we leave their environment alone and just take photos of what we can find on the outside. And again, iNaturalist is a fantastic app that can be used to really get nice up close on these bugs. And if you are, some people are afraid of spiders. You can ask someone else, like, "Oh, look, can you please take a photo of this spider for me? I don't want to get too close to it." But spiders, spiders are great. Spiders are my favorite of all of the invertebrates. There are now no deadly spiders left in Victoria. There's only one deadly spider in Australia. And when I say deadly spiders, most people think whitetails and redbacks and Sydney funnel webs. And it's only the Sydney funnel web now. Redbacks used to be deadly, but through inventions such as the antivenom and indoor plumbing, redback bites are such a rarity, and the treatment is so good. And I know you're all very well first aid trained. Spiders, they're okay. They're our friends. But if you're uncomfortable, just don't go near them. And yeah, so I'll have a quick little chat about some of the photos that you can see here. We have the stag beetle, and just look how amazing and shiny that is. You can get nice up close. He's not going anywhere. And the metallic sheen, you'll find it's pretty common in the invertebrate world. Even the jumping spider just next to him, while it's not actually metallic sheen, that's just beautifully colored hairs. Although there's orange, the yellow, there's little bit blue spots there. If you get him under a microscope, stunning. But they're really important for us to collect records of, because often people just don't see them because they're just so tiny and not looking for them. And we're after those big ticket items like kangaroos or wombats, but don't forget about the little guys. And the stonefly hidden there, that's one of the larval forms. So that's actually under the water. He's probably a 1 or 2 year old nymph. So, it's called a stonefly, but you can see it's not a fly yet. He will go into his metamorphosis. Just like the emperor gum moth caterpillar down there on the bottom left-hand side. Caterpillars are another one that can be very beautiful, but don't touch. A lot of them have long hairs or fine hairs, like you can see there, and that can be very irritable. So lots of photos. All right, and then a beautiful jewel beetle right in there. It's hard to tell from the photo, but lots of little beautiful gold flecks all down him. So if you take time and you look closely, you'll be amazed by the invertebrate world. And last but not least, I'm sure many of you have come across these big golden orb spiders out in the bush before. They love to make big, long webs stretching over wide areas. And that's a lovely reminder to, while we're out there looking around, looking on top of rocks for reptiles and up in trees for birds and underneath leaves for little bugs, remember to keep looking around and stay aware of your environment so you don't walk into one of these webs. All right, well, that's my slides. Now we'll have a nice quick little video to explain about how to make an account on iNaturalist and how you can get involved in the Big Scouting Bioblitz.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an iNaturalist account for your group and also how to record an observation using the iNaturalist app. To start off, download the iNaturalist app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Then once it's downloaded, open the app. Now you can register an account for your Scout group. We suggest creating an account for your whole Scout group to use. You can share the login details with your youth members and work together to collect records. You'll need a username, like First Windy Valley Scout Group. You'll need a password and an email address. Once you've made an account, register your Scout group at the Big Scouting Bioblitz webpage, and we'll add your Scout group to the leaderboard. So now that you have an account on iNaturalist, you can start collecting records to practice for the Big Scouting Bioblitz. All records in the Bioblitz need to have some evidence, such as a photo or sound recording, to verify what you've observed. To make a new record, open the iNaturalist app and tap the plus button. You'll notice there's a few options here to choose where you're getting your evidence from. Let's tap Take Photo. And taking photos for iNaturalist is easy. Find your subject, that's the living thing that you want to record, and take some photos from different viewpoints. For plants, it's useful to get the flowers, leaves, and bark. For mushrooms or fungi, it's useful to get a couple of different angles, plus a photo of the gills of the mushroom if you can. And for animals, getting photos from different angles helps to capture their key features, like their tail feathers, feet, mouth, or beak, or fur or feathers. Once you've captured your photos, you'll need to tell iNaturalist what you think you've captured. It can be as simple as entering in plant or animal, or you can dive a bit deeper. For this one, I'm going to put in gum tree, because I know it's a gum tree. My phone has automatically captured the date and time, as well as the location that I've taken these photos. If your phone hasn't recorded those, you should enter them in now. Location visibility determines whether people can see your record or not. For it to count for the Bioblitz, your records need to be either obscured or open. If you know that this plant, animal, or fungi is a pet or has been planted, you can mark it here under captive or cultivated. And finally, if you want to add any notes to your record, they can help when another iNaturalist user comes along to identify what you've observed. You can write in something like, "This record is about the flowers, not the bee in the pictures." Once you're done, you can tap the tick and your record will be uploaded to iNaturalist. To capture a sound recording, such as a bird chirping or a frog croaking, it's much the same as capturing a photo. I suggest recording at least 20 seconds to help someone identify the sound for you. Remember, you have to have evidence such as a photo or sound recording for it to count towards the Bioblitz. Make sure you're not capturing the same thing twice, so check with your peers to see if anyone else has recorded what you're about to record. If you've registered for the Big Scouting Bioblitz on the Scouts Victoria website, your records that you capture on iNaturalist will automatically be added to your group's tally for the leaderboard. So, to check the leaderboard, open the iNaturalist app, open the in-app menu, tap Projects, and then search the Big Scouting Bioblitz 2021. From there, you can join the project and also see which groups are capturing a lot of records. We're really looking forward to seeing what you find when you're out and about during the Bioblitz. Make sure you head on out to your local park on that weekend and try and capture as much as you can. These kinds of records help researchers understand what's going on with our wildlife and flora, so we're doing a great service to our local and global community. Together, we can explore nature, record species, and support action.
All right, let's have some questions.
Cool. It's definitely very interesting stuff. We'll start with that one, but I think we've already answered that, so it's pretty self-explanatory. Is it okay to put water out in park areas to watch what wildlife is in this area?
That's a good question, Joanne. And I would be a spoil sport, and I'm going to say no. Why I'm going to say no is that the landscapes will already have water where the animals are already getting it from. So what I would advise is instead of putting it out and changing that system up a little bit, I would go to where they already are. So whether it's a stream or often even just big puddles that are regularly formed. And why that's a better approach is it doesn't disrupt the systems that are already in place. Good question, though.
Agent Activist asks, what's your favorite animal from the wet forests?
G'day, Agent. My favorite animal from the wet forests. It's got to be the lyrebird. It really is just an incredible species. But a close second is the greater glider, which is similar to a possum. They're in the same family, but they've got a fantastic membrane between their legs, and they can glide just hundreds of meters. It's amazing. A lot further than you think. The mammals that can fly. It's pretty cool.
And our Agent Activist also asks, how many species of frogs are there?
That is a fantastic question, Agent, and the short answer is a lot. In Victoria, off the top of my head, I don't know. So I am going to say about, I'd say 100, close to 100 in Victoria alone. In Australia, I've got a cheeky frog book, so I'll have a quick look and see if it happens to say in the front while you ask the next question.
Denise asks, what's the best finding that has come through the volunteers using the app?
All right. I'll have to get back to you on the frogs. A lot is the short answer there, Agent. The best finding that has come through the app, not really sure yet because the app, it's still coming in. Parks Victoria, I haven't seen a lot of the data yet. So instead of answering that question, I'll tweak it a little bit to what's the coolest finding that someone said, hey, I've found this. Do you know anything about it, or is this important? Which is effectively what the app does. Was someone sent me a photo saying, oh, I found this snake. I'm not sure if it's interesting or not. And this was in Pyramid Hill, a small town near Echuca. And I opened the photo, not really knowing what to expect, and it was a massive carpet python. It was almost the entire length of the road. You could even see little bumps where it's had a tasty little treat and some nice little rabbits, and it just amazing. And they're like, is this important? Absolutely. That was really cool. I've never seen one in the wild. I'm very jealous. I go out looking all the time. So everything is important, but that's by far the coolest that's come across my desk.
Definitely sounds good. What's the best Parks Victoria park to do the Bioblitz in on the Mornington Peninsula?
All right, Mornington Peninsula. I would say some of your key targets are Port Nepean National Park and Mornington Peninsula National Park. So they're pretty much joined. You've got a variety of landscapes there. You've got a bit of heathland, a bit of grassland, and you can also chuck in some of the coast and intertidal zones. So you're getting a couple of different ecosystems all in the one. And in that park, you have cool things like Lewin's rail, which is a really interesting bird, white-footed dunarts, which is similar to the dusky antechinus I talked about earlier. Yeah, that's a really good option there, and that gives you a couple of different environments you can explore all at once.
Narelle asks, what weekend is it on?
That's a good one. I might pass that one over to Lawrence. I've forgotten off the top of my head. There you go. November 26th, 29th. Magic. There you go. And yes, definitely join. And if you'd like to know more on it, scoutsvictoria.com.au/bioblitz.
And that's all for the questions. So we'd like to say thank you, Tim, for joining us. And I'm sure everyone at home enjoyed it and definitely learned something. I did. It's very interesting. And we loved hearing about how it will be contributing to the biodiversity records across the state.
No, look, thank you very, very much for inviting me. I've had a great time talking to you all. And yeah, go out there and let me know what you find. I can't wait to see.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we hope you sign your scout group up for the Big Scouting Bioblitz by visiting scoutsvictoria.com.au/bioblitz, and good luck with collecting records all over the weekend. We hope you find some interesting things.